The stakes have never been higher, from shifting alliances to absurd diplomatic rhetoric. We're diving into the heart of the tensions that continue to shape global affairs. Will NATO hold firm against Russian threats? And what does the future hold for Ukraine? We've got a lot to unpack, so stay with us. This is The Gaze. Don't forget to follow our website, YouTube, and socials for more sharp takes and frontline reporting. Russia's Ministry of Defense has once again reported the downing of drones over several regions, including Tambov Oblast.
Hint: the ammunition depot is on fire. The ammunition is exploding. See, they're just going off in flashes. This is fucked up.
Look, holy shit. The factory, look, it's like it's on fire.
Oh, it's not the SAC, it's the sector.
It's the factory. Dom, just look at what's going on there.
We're screwed. Huh?
Ten kids.
In the city of Kotovsk, a gunpowder plant was hit. This is one of Russia's largest facilities producing ammunition and gunpowder for small arms. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the plant has increased its output by 1/3. It has been under international sanctions since March 2023. There isn't a single news episode these days without the word drones. And now it means much more than just a word.
The security service of Ukraine strikes and will continue to strike the enemy even where they believe themselves to be untouchable. We are working to surprise them with new operations just as painful as Operation Spiderweb. In full accordance with the laws and customs of war, we targeted entirely legitimate military objectives, air bases and aircraft used to bomb our peaceful cities. What we are doing is real demilitarization of the Russian Federation. Vasyl Maluk, Lieutenant General, head of the Security Service of Ukraine.
It was on the 10th of June 2022 that a new era began on the battlefield. Exactly 3 years ago today, pilots from Signum became the first in Ukraine to successfully use FPV drone in combat. It was 2022, the full-scale war was only beginning to escalate. At that time, there was no widespread use of FPV drones, and most people couldn't imagine a drone being used as a weapon. Today, we're operating FPV drones via fiber optic links and even using them to take down aerial targets that Russia uses to attack civilians and attempts to erase Ukrainian culture. Do these sound like legitimate military targets? Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russia has destroyed or damaged 670 churches and prayer houses, killed 60 clergy members from various churches and religious organizations, and many priests and pastors have been illegally arrested and held captive by Russia. These are not the only values that Russia is taking from us. Russians have stolen over 1.7 million items of Ukrainian cultural heritage from the occupied territories. The issue of museum expropriation in Russia is overseen by Sergei Naryshkin, the director of their Foreign Intelligence Service. According to Mykola Tochitsky, Ukraine's Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications, speaking to Ukrinform, Russia is systematically and deliberately destroying Ukraine's cultural heritage.
In earlier times, when Russians appropriated our name and our history, they would remove cultural artifacts and transfer them to institutions like the Hermitage or museums in Moscow. Today, they are actively trafficking these items on the black market. Mykola Tochitsky, Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications of Ukraine, in an interview with Ukrinform.
In a move that could reshape the dynamics of Ukraine's defense strategy, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has announced plans to scale back military aid to Ukraine in the upcoming U.S. defense budget, as reported by the Associated Press on the 10th of June. This decision comes after several months of predictions and threats from the U.S. to withdraw from the negotiations process and a temporary halt in military intelligence sharing, which may have allowed Russia to push Ukrainian forces out of Kursk region earlier this spring. This is a reduction in this budget, Hegseth told lawmakers during testimony before Congress. This administration views the conflict differently. We believe a negotiated peace is in the best interests of both parties and aligns with America's national interests. Should these cuts proceed, Ukraine could see a decrease in crucial air defense systems, assets that have played a critical role in defending against Russia's relentless aerial assaults.
This is a reduction in this budget. This administration has a completely different view of this conflict. We believe that a peaceful settlement through negotiations is in the best interests of both sides and in the interest of our country. Pete Hegseth, U.S. Secretary of Defense, during a speech to the U.S. Congress.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion in February of 2022, the U.S. has provided over $66 billion in support to Ukraine. However, with the looming restrictions on future aid supplies and weapon purchases, Ukraine's air defense could weaken, improving Russia's missile strike capabilities, which, ironically, may contain American components. And worst-case scenario, the U.S. could even push the kill switch on Patriot air defense systems, so crucial for Ukraine. The United States should continue supporting Ukraine rather than abandon it. That's what Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur emphasized during a congressional hearing on Tuesday, according to a post on her official X account.
Ukraine has been at war for over 10 years. What they have done with drones is impressive, and it will change the course of the war. We must help freedom prevail. This is the most important test of freedom for NATO allies in my lifetime. And we had better help them win. Marcy Kaptur, U.S. Congresswoman. During hearings in the U.S. Congress,
Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur strongly voiced her stance, underscoring the importance of continued support for Ukraine. She urged U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to ensure that the U.S. remains committed to Ukraine, rather than stepping back from the support Ukraine so desperately needs. We must help freedom prevail, Kaptur remarked, adding that Ukraine's survival is not only vital for the nation, but also for the entire free world. Her comments stood in stark contrast to those of Secretary Hegseth, who earlier confirmed the administration's plans to reduce military aid to Ukraine. This represents a shift from the priorities set during Biden's presidency, when Ukraine's defense and NATO accession were at the forefront of the U.S. foreign policy. Ukraine's foreign ministry has condemned the Hungarian government's biased rhetoric surrounding the war and President Zelensky. Speaking on the 10th of June, Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Georgi Tichy criticized Hungary's communications about Ukraine, saying that they have gone off the rails.
Ukraine proposes a complete and unconditional ceasefire while Russia rejects it and continues the war and killings with its all might. But for some reason we do not see Hungary demanding that Russia agree to a ceasefire. Official Budapest is silent on this issue, or it continues to absolutely accuse Ukraine of not wanting peace. Georgi Tichy, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, during a press briefing.
Tichy also pointed out that Hungary either stays silent when it should take a principled stand, or makes baseless accusations when cooperation is necessary. He expressed surprise that even a simple media interview with a Ukrainian official sparked exaggeration and unfair reactions from Budapest. While Kyiv remains open to dialogue and cooperation regarding the rights of Hungary's ethnic minority in Ukraine, Tichy warned that Hungary's strategy on vilifying Ukraine is short-sighted and bound to fail. Tichy's comments come in response to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's objection to President Zelensky's interview with a Hungarian outlet. Orban accused Zelensky of interfering in Hungary's internal affairs and supporting the opposition party.
Zelensky lashed out at us because Hungarians refused to die for Ukraine. We don't want our children coming home from the front in coffins, and we don't want Hungarian money going to Ukraine. Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, in response to Volodymyr Zelensky.
Government spokesman Zoltan Kovac labeled Zelensky anti-European and reaffirmed that Hungary would always prioritize its own national interests over Ukraine's, stating, "Let me be clear, Ukraine's EU membership is not one of our national interests, no matter what Zelensky says." Let's begin this topic with a quote from Russia's negotiator and ex-minister of great Russian culture of violence, war and destruction, Vladimir Medinsky.
We want peace, but if Ukraine keeps being driven by the national interests of others, then we will be simply forced to respond. Vladimir Medinsky, Russian negotiations team head.
What Medinsky is really talking about here is Putin's education. Medinsky first gained prominence in Russia's political circles, not as a scholar, but as Putin's mouthpiece, interpreting history the way Putin wanted to be interpreted. Medinsky justifies the war, echoing the Kremlin's inflated narrative. According to Medinsky, all lands in Ukraine or elsewhere on the planet are Russian. Russian culture is superior. All who dare to oppose Russian brutal criminal force are Nazis or neo-Nazis. So, who really is Medinsky? The answer is simple. Nobody. Just another interchangeable asset. There are dozens like him at the top of Russia's political pyramid. Putin spoke at historians, spreading the paranoid KGB narrative to the world. And their mantra, Mother Russia wants peace, but we're forced to kill, abduct children, and commit atrocities because of the wicked West. And let's not forget NATO, the ever-present boogeyman. And it's not just Medinsky. Another key Russian official responsible for relations with the US stated that withdrawing NATO troops from Baltic states could help end the war.
The American side is pushing for practical solutions that address the root causes of the fundamental problems between us and the security sector. Among these reasons, NATO expansion is top priority. Russian Foreign Affairs Minister's deputy Sergei Ryabkov.
Here is where we all can agree with Ryabkov. NATO expansion is the top priority for Russia, and we need more. And let's talk the one person who made NATO expand for Finland and Sweden in a single year, Vladimir Putin. His militaristic adventure in Ukraine has shook the world and led to NATO's historic expansion. On the 29th of May, US Special Representative for Ukraine Keith Kellogg mentioned that Washington is open to discussing Russia's demands regarding NATO enlargement. The Kremlin, of course, welcomes this rhetoric from the US. Well, the right of states to freely choose their alliances is enshrined in multiple international treaties, but why bother with that? Let's just follow Putin's lead and ignore the international laws. Surely, this will stop him from attacking the Baltic states, where 100,000 Russian troops are already stationed on the border. From military strategy to political rhetoric, we've covered the latest developments that matter. What do you think will happen next on the international arena? Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for more, right here with the Gaze.